Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Buying a Home in Eindhoven. Normally, my colleague Giovanna is joining, but today she has some family commitments. So I will hosting this webinar together with my colleague Ludo. Whenever you have a question, just put it in the chat and he will give you an answer or pass the question to me, and then I will answer a little bit later. What are we going to see tonight? That's, of course, some information about our company in first place. Then we look at the process of renting versus buying. We look at the buying process itself, of course, and we look at some frequently asked questions. I saw already one question in the Q&A. Somebody asked, is it possible to see this webinar later? Yes, indeed, that's possible. So we are going to record the webinar and it will be shared with you on a later moment. So you can still review whenever that is possible for you. Normally, as I said, you will meet my colleague Giovanna. Why is that important? Because she's from Brazil, but she's living already for a long time in Eindhoven at the moment. A proud mother of a son and a daughter, and moved to the Netherlands already since 2009. So the moment that you will have contact with our company, in first instance, that will be Giovanna. And of course, if it's necessary, you will meet one of the colleagues, like today with myself and Ludo in this webinar. This is the team, because we are not doing it all on our own, of course, but we are all part of a team. You can see that Kimo is the founder of the company. I joined recently and I'm the business manager of the buying team. And then we have some great colleagues like Katie from Cyprus, Ludo is here in the call, Alana, Rick, and also Rafaela, who joined us recently. And of course, Giovanna, I'm sorry that I said already in Eindhoven. First, maybe a little bit about us and who we are. We are not a traditional real estate agent. That doesn't mean we are not professional. That doesn't mean we don't know the rules. But what is important is that we try to have a personal service towards you, and we focus on that in the same way as we focus on all the professional and all the financial elements of a buying process as well. We help with buying or renting our clients. So on today, we don't sell any houses. We are only buying or renting. That means that we don't have any conflict of interests. We always work for you as our client, and we only have to take into account everything that is important for you, and we don't have to think at another side that is involved in the process. We charge a fixed fee. So that means we don't charge an interest rate or a percentage on the price of the house that you're going to purchase. We are always having a flat fee depending on the project that we offer or the packages that we offer. There are two different prices, but it will never differ. Even if you buy a house that is like 10% more, the fee for you will stay always the same. We know what it is to settle in a new country because we are from abroad as well. So we know sometimes where are the little frictions or the little points of attention when you buy a house in a land that is not the land where you lived before or where you were born. So also that helps, we believe, to guide you through that process. We understand what is the next step you need to take. We understand also what you experience because we experienced ourselves. And in that way, we are a little bit different than the normal real estate broker that you find somewhere else. What is important is that we always like to be transparent with you. We have a lot of knowledge. So we know a lot about mortgages and financial information as well, but we are not a mortgage advisor. So for that, we always refer to the experts. So of course, we share our opinions and we share our experiences. But the moment that we come on a specific topic where we are not the expert ourselves, we will always tell you, and we will always direct you to the specific experts in that playing field. So what we say always about mortgages is we can advise you and we can give you some tips, But if you want to have like the real explanation and the real important explanations from an expert, then always go to your bank or go to a mortgage advisor. Yeah. Maybe this one, I believe that normally there was a poll, but tonight there is a little technical problem on that. So I cannot start it, but let's get to know you. Maybe you can put in the chat who you are, where you're from, and what you're looking for exactly. And then I give you 3 minutes maybe to fill that in the chat. And then Ludo can tell me who is here all in the webinar tonight.
All right, we are yet to receive some messages. That's okay. If people would like to stay anonymous, I can understand. We'll leave it as it is. Maybe that's fine.
Yeah, perfect. Of course, no problem. Then we go forward with the next slide. Today is, of course, always our ambition to add some value to you. We believe in sharing that information with you, that you know exactly how the process is working, and that you feel comfortable to go forward. And if you like then some more assistance, then of course we can help you with that. So whenever you have a question as well, feel free to pop it in the chat, and we will have a look at it and give you a response. Maybe first, information is always interesting to see what can we find in the different newspapers in and around Eindhoven, and also in general for the Netherlands. Yeah, the first article that we see, and that's very clear, is that there is a shortage of houses for sale in Eindhoven. It's of course not only in Eindhoven that is the case, but it's also in general in the Netherlands. I heard already that the new government will take some decisions and put some budget as well in the housing market to have a little bit more of offer in the market in different kind of ways. But of course, that has an influence on the market in general, and also on the prices, of course, in the market. And we come to that a little bit later. But important to know that there is a shortage of houses, but it's not impossible to buy a house. So we did it this year for several clients. It's still possible to buy a house. You only have to see that you pay the right price or you make the right offer. But of course, for that, we can help you, and we will share some more information going forward. We also see that, there are a lot of buyers that overbid on the asking price. That's also a general remark that we hear: how much do we need to overbid on the asking price? We also come to that question totally at the end of our presentation, because it's not only the asking price that is important, or it's even not important. What is the asking price? The most important for you will be the value of the property. But on that topic, we come back a little bit later in the presentation. And then we see as well that in general, Eindhoven, I followed the city a little bit in the past. I received also a lot of information from Giovanna about it. And we see that Eindhoven is also a city where you see that there is a lot of things going on, where maybe in the past it was known from the fabrics of Philippe. We see on today that Eindhoven is more than that, and that we also see that there is design, that there is innovation, that there is nice architecture. So yeah, we see that it is a city in a positive development. And that makes it attractive, of course, for a lot of people to buy a house over there. Not only expats, also just Dutch residents. They like the city a lot, and that's something we can see as well in the demand for houses over there. Then maybe important for you is to come to the NHG. As I just mentioned, the government will take some actions for the future to have a lot of new builds in the market. They will also ask at the corporations to have 2/3 of the houses that they are building below the NHG border. And that means that for 2021, it was below a purchase price of 325,000 euros. For 2022, that will be 355,000 euros. Yeah. So whenever you buy a house below 355,000 euros, then it is very interesting to have a look at that national mortgage guarantee, which is some kind like an insurance, but where you have the benefit of a lower interest rate in the market. And the moment that you are not able to pay the total debt that is outstanding on your property, then that insurance will help you as well to cover that difference. So very important to have a look at it. And the moment that you fall within that budget frame of 355,000 euros, for sure you need to double check if you can apply for it, because most of the time that's the best option as well, also taking into account the interest rates that apply. And then we have the transfer tax on the property. As you know, we have some purchase costs that are involved when buying a house. And one of those is the transfer tax. Normally, the transfer tax is 2% for people that go to live in the house themselves. If you're an investor, that's something different, because then you pay 8%. But the transfer tax can also be exempted. And when does this happen? It's when you are below 35 years old. Then you can apply for it. It must be the first time that you buy a house and that you ask for it. It needs to be a house that is below 400,000 as a purchase price. And it can also apply when you're, for example, a couple and you're going to buy the house together, that one of you is above 35 and the other is below 35, then that rule of tax exemption will apply on the person that is below 35. And then you pay not 2% in total on the purchase price, but only 1% for the person that is above 35 years old. So very interesting. The moment that these conditions apply, you can be tax exempted, and that means you don't have to pay any purchase or transfer tax anymore. For you maybe to have always in mind is, okay, we are looking for a home, but do we need to rent now or do we need to buy? And what are maybe the benefits of both sides? We see in general that the rental market in the Netherlands is quite expensive. If you have a look at it, then you will see in a lot of cases that just paying the rent is as high as paying an installment on buying a property. And that is also what we try to explain over here is when you own a home, the positive elements about it is that you have some stability. It's your own place, of course. So you can stay in the property the whole time, that's clear. With the monthly installments, you will build up some equity. So that's very interesting and important as well. And you can also have a mortgage interest deduction. That means that the interest rates that you pay on your mortgage will be deducted from your salary before they are taxed. So also that is a very positive element. And that all applies when you're owning your own home, of course. When you're renting, of course, what we see, and I just explained, rents, they keep rising and they are already high, but they still keep rising in today's market. You will not have the benefit of the tax exemption. And you don't create any wealth in the end because you're paying to the landlord, of course, and you're not building up any equity yourself. So therefore, we believe that owning your own home can be very interesting. And that also shows on the next example. We should see a house over here. And let's take it as an example. We pay a rental fee. So the cost per month is 1,350 euros for the rent that you pay. That means 16,200 euros on a yearly basis. We can buy this property for 398,000 euros at an interest rate of 1.54%. And that means that we have a monthly installment or a monthly payment of 886 euros. On top of that, of course, because we have a mortgage, we need to pay a monthly interest rate, and that monthly interest rate is 496 euros per month. When we buy a house, of course, we have some closing fees. So we also need to buy 19,900 euros as closing fees. Yeah. Of course, the payments that we do as a monthly payment, 886, that is like an investment. We all believe that when we buy a property, that the value will be stable or even increase in the next coming years. There can always be a little dip at a certain moment, but most of the time the prices are stable or even go up. So that's the investment that we do, the 886 euros. Next to that, we see that the difference between the 1,350 euros, what the cost that we need to pay when we rent a place, with the monthly cost when we buy a place is 496, is the interest rate. There we do a saving of 845 euros a month between those two costs. And that is, of course, very interesting, but because we see that if we take all costs into account, the closing fees we need to pay, but also the costs we need to pay on a monthly basis, that after 23 months, we make profit if we buy the house instead of renting the place. Yeah. So in this example, I believe it's clear to you as well that buying a property can be very beneficial for yourself and for building up some equity going forward. And then it's important, of course, to know what will you need in savings when you buy a place. We have here a little overview of all the costs that apply when you buy a property. As just mentioned before, we have, of course, the 2% of the transfer tax that applies. As mentioned, there are some conditions when you can be exempted, but otherwise the 2% of the transfer tax will apply on the purchase price. We have, of course, the notary you need to pay. You will have to pay for drafting a mortgage deed, and you will also need to pay him before, for drafting a transfer deed. And that's the official document where you become the legal owner of the property. Next to that, you have your advisors or with the bank or a mortgage advisor. They will also charge you a fee, of course. You have your real estate agent. As you see, normally real estate agents will charge a fee around 1 or 2% of the purchase price. If you take our services, I mentioned it before, it's only a fixed fee, so it will be a different fee that applies. We have the appraiser that you also need to pay, and where you need to report to get your mortgage approved. The technical inspector, that also is a condition normally that you always put forward when you make your offer, and that means that you do a visual technical inspection of the house before you go forward with signing the house, with signing the purchase contract and going forward in the process. And then you have the interpreter. He will be asked when you visit the notary to translate all documents for you. It's a legal necessity that he is there. 250 euros, and then you have two elements that can be at stake but not always are. First thing is the bank guarantee. It depends, of course. You can always make a deposit when you buy the house. The deposit will be 10%. You can do it with own savings, but if you have a mortgage, you can always just ask the bank as well to provide you with a bank guarantee, and in that case you don't have to make the deposit with your own savings. You can just pay the bank guarantee to the bank, and they will arrange everything and cover the 10% deposit you need to make to the notary. And then the NHG, we already discussed about it. There also a little cost will apply of 0.7% of the mortgage amount. For 2022, it will be 0.6%, but that cost, we said already, will be settled with the advantage you have of a better interest rate normally. Maybe interesting to know where you are in the buying process at the moment. Are you still searching? Did you viewed some properties already? Are you considering making an offer? Maybe 2 minutes to put it in the chat if you like to do that. Perfect. I see not too many reactions, but that's not a problem. We will go forward with the next slides, and then the process will be a little bit more clear to you. So this is the timeline of the buying process. What is important is, of course, you need always to start and to search for a property. That's the first thing you need to do. There are a lot of options, but we have to say that it is like that like almost 95 to 98% of the properties that are listed, you will all find them on Funda. And over there, you can also create like a newsletter every day that you get the new listings. So that is the first place to go to look for a property. But of course, you can also do that on jaap.nl, or you can also look at the different websites of the different selling agents in your surrounding, because also they have some listings on their website, of course. So that's the first thing you do. You search for a property that you like, and then you book for a viewing, of course, with the selling agent. At the moment you go to the viewing, depending on the package, we can support you with that, but you visit the property and then you say, okay, I looked at the property in detail and I really like it. I want to go forward with it. Then you come to us, and then we will ask the selling agent to share the documents of the property with us. And that means we will go to review all technical elements, that we're going to look at legal elements of the property, and also some financial topics. So a total due diligence file of the property to see if everything is okay, and if we received all the information as well, that nothing is missing over there. And before you can submit an offer, we will also do a price research for you. That means that we're not going to make an official appraisal, but nevertheless, we're going to look at the references of properties that were in the neighborhood, sold in the recent months or maximum like a year from now. And then we're going to advise you what will be very likely to be the value that the appraiser afterwards will put on paper. Yeah. Based on that, so the review of the documents, so you know what information is important about the property, and you know a little bit what is the value of the property. Based on those two elements, we can help you with drafting your offer, of course, to submit it to the selling agent. That offer will be the price, but there will also some other conditions that are important, like putting your offer conditional to receiving approval on a mortgage, putting it conditional to having a technical inspection that is okay. Maybe you can talk about some movables, and you can discuss also about the transfer date of the transfer of the property. So all those things we will discuss with you, and then we submit the offer to the selling agent. And of course, we hope that the offer was the best offer and that it was approved by the seller. At that moment, you go forward to signing the purchase contract. But just in between, we have two experts that come into the process. That's first the appraiser. He will make the official report that he needs to submit to the association of the NWWI as well for approval. And then you have the technical inspection that also will do the technical expertise on the property based on a visual inspection. But then they will deliver to you also a report where you can see, okay, the next coming year, I believe there is already some maintenance to do, or some things are broken. Maybe we need to discuss with the seller. And then in the next coming 5 years as well, what is to expect of bigger costs at the property. Yeah. Based on those two elements, you can go forward with signing the purchase contract because you know what is going on. And then the moment that you sign the purchase contract, for the seller, he's bound to sell the property to you. For you as the buyer, you still have the right to withdraw from the purchase contract without giving any reason. And that is the cool off period that is mentioned in the screen in orange. So that means that you have 3 days after signing the contract where you say, okay, I signed the purchase contract, but I believe I don't feel comfortable with it and I still want to cancel the contract. Then that is possible without giving any reason and without paying any penalty. If you do it after those 3 days, you will be bound to pay a penalty of 10% of the purchase price to the seller. So very important to keep that line to have a good look at it. And of course, you start your mortgage application as soon as possible after signing the purchase contract. Sometimes you will see that when you have a mortgage advisor, they will already give you an answer within 3 days. For them, it seems to be possible to organize like that and to come back to you within 3 days. That can be very interesting when you don't have a financial clause and you want to be sure within that cool-off period if you're able to finance the property. If you go with a bank, it is likely you will receive an answer within 2 or 4 weeks maximum after submitting the application for the mortgage. Yeah. And then, of course, we hope that the mortgage is approved, and then you can just go forward with the buying process. The next step will be that you receive a statement of completion or a final note from the notary. That's like an overview with the purchase price of the property, with all costs that apply, also the costs from the notary and the research that it is, and some pro rata taxes that will apply. Of course, deducted from that will be the deposit that you already paid, and also the mortgage that you get. And then the balance is still the amount that you have to pay with your own savings. if it applies, of course. Yeah. After that statement of completion, we are almost at the end of the journey. That means that, yeah, we will go to the notary to sign the transfer deed. But just before you go to sign the transfer deed, you will have a final inspection of the house. And that final inspection is a visit that you do together with us and together with the seller to make sure that everything in the house is correct, that the house is empty, and that, of course, you can use it for the goal that you bought it for, and that is most of the time to use it as a residential place. Yeah. One thing that is still important to take into account is that there is also an end of a liability term that applies, and that end of the liability term is 2 months after you signed the transfer deed. Yeah. If there is still something that is broken, and you can prove that the seller knew that it was broken and that he didn't tell you, and you were not able to see it yourself, or even the technical expert was not able to see it when he made a visit at the house, then you can still claim some refund or some repairs with the seller. But then it's best to do it always within a time frame of 2 months, because the court will take that into account if you ever go to court for a problem like that. Yeah. So that's the timeline that you will have to run through when you're interested in buying a property. And then we have some parties yeah, that you will meet as well along that journey. The first one is your mortgage advisor. You can decide, of course, or you go with your bank or you go with the mortgage advisor. The difference between the both of them is like the bank is offering their own products. It's like a shop with one brand, selling one specific brand. And the mortgage advisor is more like yeah, the total store where you have all different brands next to each other, and where the yeah, shop assistant, in this case the mortgage advisor, will explain you what is the difference between the different products, what is the pros and what are the cons of a certain mortgage with a certain specific financial institution. So always interesting, even before starting the total process, to go to or your bank or your mortgage advisor and to know exactly your budget. Because also in today, as we said already, it's a bullish market. So it goes very fast. When you're in the process of doing the viewings and submitting your offer, you need to react very fast. So always important that you know then what is your budget, and that you can make the best offer based on the budget that is available, of course. The next expert that comes in place is your buying consultant. That can be us or that can be somebody else. We explained already a little bit what we do. So we, of course, look together with you how you can schedule some viewings. That is important. We will also look at the property documents and do the research on it. We will do the price research, of course, and if necessary, we will also negotiate after we made and submitted the offer for you. And when your offer is accepted, we will schedule all the experts that come into place. It's like the notary, the appraiser, the technical inspector, and of course, when that is necessary, we will also join the meetings whenever they come on site. Yeah. What is important is that yeah, all the documents when you buy a property are in Dutch. Also the legal documents that apply. So therefore, in our office, we have people that speak both languages and can read the documents very well, and then explain to you what is in there in detail. So you know exactly what you're buying and what is related to the property, about all the information that you can find in that file that you receive. The next expert, of course, is the appraiser. That is very important. As we said already, you cannot get a mortgage without a financial report. And that report will be made by an appraiser that is always part of the association NWWI, because they are like an independent party that will review as well that appraisal report and say, okay, it seems to be correct. All normal rules that apply for calculating a value of the property are followed. And so you can use this report for getting a mortgage. And this will take around 3 to 7 days, depending on the expert, to make that report, to do the viewing and to make that report and to submit it to you. And as said, together with the appraiser, normally there is also a building inspector that comes on site. It is not legally required. So if you think, yeah, I don't need a building inspector, I know myself what is the state of the property, then that is totally fine. But we always suggest that if you're not a technical expert, and also when you don't buy a new building, then it's always good to have a technical inspector coming on site, because he can check and double check, and sometimes they see more than you and I do, because they have the knowledge and they have the experience. What they will do is a visual inspection. That means that they will not break out the walls or not open different walls to see what is behind, but just do a visual inspection. Of course, for example, in the bathroom, they will also use some tools where they can see if there is a problem with humidity behind the tiles, yes or no. So all those things they will do, but for example, they will not do a camera inspection into the pipes, or they will not do an asbestos check unless you ask for that, because they also have, of course, different services. And if you really, I'm sorry, if you really say that is important for you to have a check on that as well, then that is possible as well. Yeah. This report will not take 3 to 7 days. It's more like within 2 days that you will receive that report. And there will be then the summary, as I just explained, also with the budget, what to expect from maintenance costs or some costs for repair whenever they appear to be present. And then the final expert, but also very important, of course, that's the notary. And the notary will draft for you the mortgage deed and the transfer deed. There is a little difference in the Netherlands. If you go to Amsterdam, then the notary will also draft the purchase contract. But in the rest of the country, that will already and always be done by the selling agent. And so the selling agent will draft that contract. Of course, as a buying manager, we will review those documents together with you and see that it is in line with law and in line with the offer that you made and submitted, of course. And then you go to the notary, he will draft the mortgage deed for you, and he will draft the deed of transfer as well. And the moment that you go over there, as I just explained, there will be a translator present as well, so that you understand the total of the content of that specific deed. Yeah. Always, of course, before the moment that you go to sign a certain contract, it is the purchase contract or the transfer deed, we will have a review with you, and you will have the chance already to ask some questions or to receive some explanations whenever that is necessary or useful. And then we come to some frequently asked questions. The first one is, are you going to read them, Ludo, for me? Did I explain, or?
Whatever you like. I might as well, as I'm here. Well, you can see it on the screen as well. But our first frequently asked question is, what happens if you want to leave the country after several years?
Yeah, indeed. That's a question we receive more than once. So the answer you can find over here. When you leave the country, you have 3 options in the end. You can just keep your home and yeah, just pay the mortgage. That's an option, of course. You can, as a second option, choose to rent out the place. Then you have a rent and you can pay the mortgage with that. Important to say is that in the Netherlands, you have 2 types of mortgages. The first one is a residential mortgage, and that's when you live in the place yourself. And it goes along with certain conditions also on interest rates. And the second one is a buy-to-let mortgage. Yeah. If you rent out the place, you will have to have a buy-to-let mortgage. So when you're going to live there yourself and you start with a residential mortgage, you will need the permission of your bank to rent it out to the tenants. So that's very important. If you don't do that and the bank figures out, then yeah, you will have to pay some penalties. The third option you have, of course, is at the moment that you say, yeah, we're leaving the country, that you will sell the property. That's possible. And the good thing is that you will not pay any penalty, or you don't need to pay any taxes on the capital gains that you make. So that's very profitable. So that are the 3 options when you leave the country.
Thank you very much for that. And what if I want to rent out my house or rent out part of my house? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. As I just said, over there again, we come to that point that If you have a buy-to-let mortgage, no problem. If you have a residential mortgage, that's not that easy to do. So you always need to speak with your financial advisor at that moment. If you only rent out a room, that is allowed normally for 2 people without any permit. But for some areas in Eindhoven, it's not allowed as well. So we put on the website over here, always double check on that, because for some areas, the city will say that it is not allowed to rent out the room just like that.
Okay, perfect. Probably everyone has heard it now, that overbidding is kind of the norm. What's the typical amount I should overbid, Philippe?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the question is maybe a little bit more easy than the answer. What I said before already is important to look at how the market is working on today. And there we see 3 different topics on the screen. The first is the asking price. Over here in the example is 400,000 euros. The second important element is the market value. That's the price that we try to calculate during our price research and what the appraisal will put on paper finally to get your mortgage. And the market value in this example is 430,000 euros. And then finally, we come to the purchase price. And in this case, the purchase was closed at an amount of 460,000 euros. What is important over here is that we see that 460,000 compared to the asking price 400,000 is a difference of 60K, so 50%. And that we see that compared to the market value, it's a difference of 30K and 7.5%. Yeah. In this case, you would say, okay, you need to overbid on this specific house for 15%. But we have to say that the asking price, it's not something that is defined or calculated in a specific way. It's just a decision that the selling agent and the seller make. Okay, we're going to put it in the market for this asking price, and here it's 400,000. If we look then to the next slide, we see that the asking price over here was a little bit lower. It's 380,000 euros. The market value is still the same, 430,000 euros, and the purchase price is the same as well. It's 460,000 euros. Yeah. In this example, you should say, okay, I need to overbid on the asking price with 21%. Yeah. Although, if you look at the market value for that same house, you still pay 30K above the value of that house, 7.5%, and the purchase price in the end is the same, 460,000. So what we always explain to the people is, don't look at the asking price, because that can be totally different depending on the selling agent and the seller, but always try to define the market value. And based on that market value, of course, we will advise you as well what is likely to be the purchase price. Important to say is that the market value again is the 100% you can receive as a mortgage. The 430,000 will be financed by the bank. The difference of the 30K you will have to pay with your own savings. So in that sense, if you have the market value, you know what the bank can give you to buy the property, and then you can decide on your own how much you like the property to put some extra savings to finally close the deal.
Thank you. Well, before you buy a house, you also have to potentially make a deposit. What is the 10% deposit that I need to complete?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. The 10% deposit is the down payment that you do for the purchase. It's always agreed in the purchase contract, and it's the standard in the Netherlands that it's 10%. This means that at the moment that you sign the purchase contract, you will apply for your mortgage, and then 1 week after your mortgage is approved, then you will need to pay the 10% into the account of the notary. Yeah, you can decide to do that with your own savings, then we call it a deposit. You can also decide, as I said before, to use a bank guarantee. At that moment, you don't have to do the transfer yourself. You will only have to pay the cost of the bank guarantee to the bank at that moment. Yeah, and then at the end, of course, when you buy the property and when you sign the transfer deed, then the total of the amount of the mortgage will cover also that 10%, and will balance out the total of the purchase price you still need to pay. Yeah, so of course, the 10% is with the notary. The moment that you cancel your contract and you don't go forward with signing of the transfer deed, that 10% will also be used to cover the penalties that you need to pay based on the clauses that apply in the purchase contract.
All right, makes sense. Well, next question is a very important question, of course. What can you tell us about our fees?
Yes, that's indeed also important to know. As I said already before, a lot of buying agents, they calculate their fees as a percentage of the purchase price, which means that if you buy a property that is more expensive, that you will also pay a higher fee to the buying agent. That's something, if you ask us, we don't think that it's very logical. And therefore, we always apply a standard fee that doesn't change based on the price that you pay for the property that you finally buy. So we have two packages over here. We have the Smart and we have the Complete package. The biggest difference is that with the Smart package, we are more like your buying coach in the sense that we have meetings with you like we have like now with the Google Meet, or we can call each other or WhatsApp or send an email. And that's then a fixed fee of 2,499 euros. The other package is the Complete package. And that means that we are really your buying agent in the normal way, in the sense that we also visit the properties together with you. We will also visit the site when the experts are over there. And when you go to sign the transfer deed with the notary and we are allowed to come due to Corona, then we will also be over there. So that's the Complete package. And there we are always at your site during the total process, and that we offer at the price of 3,999 euros. And we only ask to do a little down payment when you start, around 10% of the price, and the total fee you only pay at the moment you close the deal and you sign the transfer deed. So it's like no cure, no pay. And I don't know if there are people that are over here that like maybe to consider to buy a new build as well. For them, we also offer a specific package in the sense that it's called New Build on Plan. And that is where we buy together with you a new build that is not existing yet, but where we're going to discuss together with the developer what are the projects that are on the market. And that's something where we have a specific package because it's a little bit different than a normal or an existing house that you will buy. And that's a price at 2,999 euros, including VAT. So different packages for every taste here present, I believe.
Indeed, indeed. Then a question we've been getting a lot the last year and a half. What impact does COVID-19 have, or what impact has it had on the housing market?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's also interesting if you look back to the articles totally at the beginning of the COVID crisis, because we can call it a crisis. In the beginning, everybody said, with COVID now, nobody will buy a house. Everybody will be afraid to spend money and the prices will go down. Of course, what we saw the last couple of months, and for sure the last year in 2021, is that prices went up very fast. And you see here the average price for a house in Q3 2021 in Eindhoven is already at an amount of 420,000 euros at the moment. And in average in the total of the Netherlands, it's around, until now without the fourth quarter, but it's around 19% that prices went up in total on average. So it is very clear that you see that there is a big increase in the price ongoing. And it's expected to continue like that next year, maybe a little bit less than it was in 2021, but still people and experts speak about 10 to maybe 12% that will be plus on the purchase prices that we have on today. And of course, what we see as well is that people are going to look for houses that are a little bit bigger, or if they look for an apartment, they want a terrace. If they want a house, they want a house with a garden, or a little bit of a bigger house with a bigger garden. And they also, because a lot of people are working from home, they also see at places that are a little bit further away from the center. So that's clear, a big impact that we see on the total market, and that is caused by the COVID crisis.
Perfect, thank you. Well, does working with EHN add value? One of my favorite questions.
Yeah, that's a good question as well. Yeah, and for sure we can guarantee that it adds some value. What is important for you to know is that also for selling agents, they receive a lot of offers on today. If they have one house, then sometimes they have 10 to 20 offers on that house, and they all need to see is it a good offer, and is it likely as well, if we accept the offer, that the parties are going to sign a purchase agreement, and in the end also the transfer deed. If you submit an offer using a selling agent or a buying agent, then selling agents will take your offer a little bit more serious. So in that sense, for sure, it is useful to use us or another buying manager to help you with making the offer. What is also important is that when you try to book a viewing, and for sure in the really busy periods, sometimes it's almost impossible, or you need to be very, very fast. But a lot of selling agents also have some slots that they keep for other buying agents. And over there, we can assist you as well with booking the viewings when that is not longer possible for you anymore. Of course, I said already before, reviewing Dutch legal and property documents, that is very important. You buy a property, and yeah, it's a big amount you need to pay. It's for sure in this market a purchase price which you will not pay every day, of course. And therefore, it's very important to do correct due diligence and to understand what is going on with the property that you're looking at. And of course, that is also very important. I explained already. We look into detail into the value of the property. So we will explain to you what is likely to be that value that will be covered by the mortgage. And as well, we can assist you a little bit in what the market is doing and what is likely to be a purchase price. But we will also advise you that if we think ourselves that compared to other properties, the asking price is too high, or it is likely you need to pay a very high amount because of the selling agent putting some pressure on some specific actions like that, then we can assist you as well in taking the right decision, of course. Yeah, and not last but not least, of course, we will inform you about all the rules and regulations that apply. And that's also something when you buy property, you always need to take into account which recent rules that apply. And of course, next year as well, we expect that some rules will change. So also over there, I believe it's very important to take a professional with you. And then the last thing is, sometimes by experience, you also learn what is good to do or not to do. So also over there, we have a lot of experience in the meantime in the team. So based on that, we can also tell you exactly what are maybe the pitfalls and some mistakes that we made that you don't need to repeat. Okay. I think we came to the final Q&A. I don't know if there are some questions at the moment.
I think most of the questions have been answered. I have one question left from Rick. On the longer term, what are the forecasts when it comes to the housing prices? Can you give a little bit of an explanation on that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, of course. And I have to say, I don't know exactly, because if I would, then maybe I would invest myself in a lot of houses right now. But we can tell you some things about it, of course. What we see is that the pressure on the prices is, of course, one of the reasons is the supply in the market and the demand in the market. And we still see that the demand is very high and the supply is low. So even when we start building like 70 to 100,000 houses every year, it still takes like 3-4 years to have all the houses in the market where there is a demand on today already. So that's something in the further future, maybe we'll find a balance again on that. But in the near future, for sure, that will not be solved tomorrow. So it keeps that there is a lot of demand and the offer stays quite low. So that will always have a pressure on the prices. The second element that apply is more like financial elements. You have, of course, the exemption of the low transfer tax. That is a benefit. You have also the interest rebate that is still existing. You also have no capital gains when you sell a house. So all those financial benefits also contribute to the fact that people like to buy a house. What will be a little bit different is that I heard from the government that they have to plan next year that if you do a gift now to your children of 100,000 euros, it can be exempted from taxes. That will not be the case anymore. So yeah, therefore, there will be a little bit of a difference. What is also happening is that they will, in different cities, take actions for investors not to be able to invest in houses until a certain amount. So also there, the demand will be a little bit lower. But that means if I come back to that, that the demand will be a little bit lower, but it will not be low. So still, there will be a pressure based on that. And of course, the last thing that is very important is the cost of financing your property. And the interest rates are still low, and they are expected to stay low as well. And so I read 2 weeks ago some articles about mortgage advisors that say even if interest rates go up a little bit, they will not make really jumps. So for sure, for next year, everybody expects prices to go up with 10% or a little bit more. What will happen the years after that, it depends a little bit on the total market, of course, and that the increase of prices will slow down. I believe that is the case. If it's the same speed as it is in 2021, I don't think that is healthy. So that it will slow down a little bit based on all those measures, that is clear. But it is expected that for sure the next coming years, and then we speak about 3 years maybe, that prices still will go up. What happens after that, then the world will look different. So that's difficult to say on today.
Cool. I think that's it's a well-rounded answer. Thank you very much. Those were all the questions, actually.
Okay, perfect. Then, I hope you all had a good view on the buying process in total, and also maybe on some specific questions that you had before. If you still have questions, of course, you can always take contact with us, and then you will speak for Eindhoven with my colleague Giovanna. You can go to our website, but you will also receive email normally with some more information, with also the presentation that we had tonight, and with some links that you can use to go forward. Whenever you're interested, because we always say when you start the buying process, it's also important to have some clear view on your budget. Then you can also pop in the chat your email address if you like, and we can share also some mortgage information with you, or some information about mortgage advisors with you. That's free to decide afterwards what you do with it, of course, and it's only if you're interested. But if you're interested, please feel free to do that, and we will share that information later with you. For the rest, I would like to thank Ludo for the assistance tonight, and I would like to wish you all a good evening, of course, and we will hope to welcome you soon and to help you buying the perfect home somewhere in Eindhoven or around.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Philippe. Hope to see you guys soon.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.